My name is Eric Shaw, and I am the director of the DC Office of Planning. I've been in the position for about 2 years, being appointed by Mayor Muriel Bowser. And I want to thank you guys for coming to the first community meeting for the second amendment cycle of the DC Comprehensive Plan. Give us a round of applause. But before, one of the rules we learn about when we are doing community engagement is not to thank ourselves. But I want to acknowledge Tanya Washington Stern. Stand up real quick, because this has been a year of preparation for her, along with the rest of the team, for us to get here. And so I just want to recognize that and thank those that have helped us along the way in terms of being our guinea pigs on engagement. But thank you very much. So the next slide says, welcome. And I actually have talking points for this. I want to let you guys know that this is a citywide effort that is being led by the Office of Planning, but has the support from all of the agencies within the district. And I want to acknowledge once again my boss and our leader, our fearless leader, Mayor Muriel Bowser, for all the support she's given for this. For the DC Council, which has also been extremely supportive for this. And we will have it at future meetings and meetings you go to for other government-related items. The agency directors have been very supportive as well. So I want to thank them for that. Next slide. And so I want you guys to understand that Washington, D.C., now Douglas Commonwealth, soon to be, is growing and changing every day. And these changes affect everyone throughout the city. But we want to make sure that everyone is benefiting from those changes as well. So the DC has a citywide plan that is our guidebook to help us plan for the inclusive city. This plan is the comprehensive plan that focuses not only on today, but for the city's future. It shapes the places we live, work, shop, and play. And maybe you'll see that on the side of buses that have been going by lately. And it informs us how the district government invests within our neighborhoods and our communities. And it provides a framework for all the development within the city. Once again, we are growing, but we have planned for this change, but we continue to strive to be an inclusive city. So once again, the comprehensive plan is a guidebook for that inclusive city that focuses on today and the city's future, that shapes how we live, work, and play, that informs district investment, and provides a framework for all the development. Can you see the next slide? And so we want to also make sure that it's responsive to the city's current and future needs, and we want to make sure, once again, that we are improving the quality of life for all residents of Washington, D.C. And so this slide shows our engagement process. How many of you guys saw the bus ads? How many of you guys saw the tweets or the Facebook ads? How many of you guys heard from someone that this was an important meeting that was happening today? We've been doing a lot of outreach right now. Our goal is to reach 125,000 people as part of this effort. And from that outreach comes engagement, meeting you guys here, hearing your ideas, and then taking in that input to shape the policies and amendments that we're going to put for the plan. And so right now, this is the first of 7 meetings. We also have a survey. We are still continuing to talk to people. We're going to be doing some topic-specific focus groups coming up later on. And then we'll be having office hours where someone will be sitting around in places around the city just ready to listen to any ideas and questions that you guys have. Also, if you go online, you can go to plandc.dc.gov. You can go to plandc@dc.gov. Or you can tweet us at OPINDC, #PlanDC, #DCCompPlan. Next. And so we're going to use this input to determine the possible amendments that we are going to shape. In addition to that, we're going to share this feedback with other partner agencies that are also doing plans. And then finally, what we're doing right now is, since anyone can propose an amendment, we're going to use this input to shape how we evaluate the efficacy of those amendments. Are these amendments in line with the values and ideas of what we've heard from residents and stakeholders? Next. Okay, so the meeting purpose today is to give you an overview of the comprehensive plan and amendment process. Is to give you information about the growth and trends of the district. Is to get your insight and feedback on issues. Is to talk about the idea of resilience. And then to discuss the community engagement process for how we're doing this. And I guess I talked about that right then and there. And so with that, there you go. I turn it over to our facilitator. Tell me your name again. Steve Brickham. Thank you very much. Can we give him a round of applause?
But I haven't done anything yet.
Well, that's the best time to get it.
Good evening, everyone. So my role tonight is to help with the process. Can everyone hear me? So I will walk you through how the evening is going to work, and then get you into different sections of the agenda and make sure that we end in time. How many people are going to be watching the debate tonight? All right, so we'll make sure we get you out of here. But this meeting will be even better than the debate. How's that? We're laying down the gauntlet. All right, so the agenda really has 4 key components. In a moment, I'm going to introduce or bring up Tanya Stern, and she's going to give you an overview, a presentation on the comprehensive plan and the amendment cycle, this second amendment cycle. Then we're going to go straight into the open house, and I know a lot of you already have had a chance to at least visit a few of the boards, meet some of the staff from the Office of Planning, but we're going to give you a full hour where you can get the full sweep of the room and visit all the different stations. After the open house, this is hopefully going to be triggering a lot of new ideas for you, issues that you think are important. So we're going to open it up near the end of the meeting to hear your thoughts about where the district should be going forward. And then right before 8:30, we'll bring Eric back up, and he will give his final thoughts and let you know how you can continue to participate going forward. All right, so with regard to the how you can share with us your input, there's going to be 2 major places to do that. The open house is going to be a full hour, so hopefully you can visit during that hour as many boards as you are most interested in, and where you want to make sure that you give your ideas about opportunities and issues to help set the context for later on during this cycle where we're actually going to begin developing actual amendments in 2017. And then you'll have your chance to share with us your thoughts at the end of the night. So everyone should have a set of worksheets that looks like this. If you didn't pick it up on the way in, I think there's plenty of copies out front. But this is a document that provides a lot of background, high-level background information on the comp plan, and the last 4 sheets, front and back, are places for you to write down your thoughts, your responses to questions, give us some feedback, and we would ask that whenever you leave this evening, that as you're walking down the hallway past the registration tables, that you leave those 2 sheets with us so that we have your input and feedback in written form, and I believe everyone's going to get a tote bag. Is that right? Okay. As long as you turn in a worksheet, you get the tote bag. So it's a quid pro quo. All right. So next slide. That's all right. So what if you have any questions? And I'm sure this evening there will be a lot of questions that you have. The comp plan is a very important guiding document for the district. It has many, many different elements. You're going to get a lot of information from Tanya over the course of about 20-25 minutes. But really, we're wanting you to spend most of your time at the open house. We've got, I think, 15, 20 staff from Office of Planning at the different boards. They're ready to answer questions about different areas of the city, about different elements of the plan, about the vision, and so on and so forth. We also have a station where if you have questions for Director Shaw, he will be up here at the front during the open house. So hopefully most of your questions can get answered there. You can also write your questions on the back sheet and leave your name and your contact information, and someone from Office of Planning or the relevant agency for that question will get back to you in a fairly short time frame. but we encourage you to ask as many questions as you have at the boards as you're going around. There should be plenty of people here to address, I think, most of what you have on your mind. So with that, anything that I missed on that? With that, I'm going to turn it over to Tanya Washington Stern. We will move your slides. And she is going to tell you everything that you need to know high level about the comp plan.
Great. So again, I am Tanya Stern. I am the Deputy Director for Planning, Engagement, and Design at the DC Office of Planning, and we really appreciate all of you joining us tonight to learn more about the comprehensive plan and about the amendment process and to share your ideas and your insights with us. So I'm going to start out with an overview about the comprehensive plan and why does it matter. But first, we want to start with a vision, planning an inclusive city. Before our current comprehensive plan was created, there was a whole visioning process that took place throughout the city that resulted in a vision statement that is the foundation for the comprehensive plan. Next slide. This vision is planning an inclusive city. And this statement is directly in the comprehensive plan in the introduction. And basically what it says is it recognizes that the district is a growing city. When our comprehensive plan was written, the district was starting to go through that whole growth trajectory. And the intent is really to ensure that as a city grows, it grows inclusively. That means that regardless of where you live in a city, how long you've lived in a city, whatever demographic background you have or other factors in your life, that everyone should be able to benefit from inclusively from this growth. Next slide. So the comprehensive plan is a 20-year vision for the district's future planning and development. It is adopted as legislation by the DC Council. The plan was originally adopted in 2006, and we have already completed one amendment cycle 5 years ago in 2011. The comprehensive plan provides policy direction in two forms. It does it through text, which are the different area elements and citywide elements that you see around the room, as well as two boards. Next slide. Yes. So in terms of who uses the comprehensive plan, these are ANC commissioners, definitely other DC residents. Within the Office of Planning, the comp plan is really the sort of foundational, the framework for all of our work at the Office of Planning. So every division within our office uses the comp plan in its policies. Other district agencies use it as well because it has policies that affect what they do, the services that they provide, as well as developers who are creating new projects in the city. The comprehensive plan is organized around 5 themes: managing growth and change, creating successful neighborhoods, increasing access to jobs and education, connecting a city, and building green and healthy communities. The comprehensive plan is composed of 3 major elements, or 3 major components. The first are the area elements, and hopefully you may have had an opportunity to look at some of the boards for particularly 2 of the area elements that we're featuring for tonight's meeting. The area elements are 10 chapters. These are the list of all of the area elements with the 2 that we're focusing on tonight, Mid-City and Rock Creek East. And these chapters provide geographically specific policies and actions for neighborhoods that, that comprise all these different area elements. One important thing to note, when you look at the map and you look at the names of the area elements, we do not use ward boundaries in a comprehensive plan. And the reason for that is because the comprehensive plan is a 20-year plan, while ward boundaries can change every 10 years following a new national census, and the district goes through a redistricting process. So ward boundaries are political boundaries that can change every 10 years, whereas the area elements are planning boundaries, and we wanted to keep a more consistent geography since the plan has a longer time frame. So I want to highlight the Mid-City area element, which is where we're located right now. That some of the neighborhoods are obviously Columbia Heights, Mount Pleasant, Adams Morgan, Howard University, and Shaw are nearby, Bloomingdale. So I don't know if everyone can see the list of neighborhoods on this slide. How many people live in neighborhoods in the Mid-City area element? Wonderful. That's really great. Glad to have you here. Next slide. Oh, actually, if you can go back to that slide. Just wanted to mention a couple of interesting points. You may or may not know that the Office of Planning houses the District State Data Center, which is the official liaison with the Census Bureau. And so all official population and demographic data that exists for the district from the Census Bureau, our agency receives it. So we have some interesting demographics included on the area elements boards and on the handouts. So I just wanted to point out a couple for Mid-City. So the population is younger than the district as a whole, with nearly half of the population aged 18 to 34. The population has also grown by almost 10,000 since 2005, at an 11% increase. The second featured area element for tonight is Rock Creek East, and some of the neighborhoods are Shepherd Park, Brightwood, Brightwood Park, Crestwood, Crestwood North, and Petworth. Do we have any residents here from, great, from neighborhoods in that area? Excellent, thank you. So here's some interesting interesting data. For Rock Creek East, the population also has increased by nearly 10,000 people since 2005. And also, the residents are generally older than the district as a whole. So around over 40% are between the ages of 35 and 64. And also nearly 6 out of 10 residents are African American. The second major component of the comprehensive plan are the citywide elements. And we have boards on this side of the room that has some information about these 12 chapters. Essentially, these are all the essential components of what makes for a successful city. It also reflects the types of services and programs that the district government performs and provides for residents. And in terms of implementing the policies of these chapters, we really partner with other district government agencies as a major stakeholder to implement the policies in these chapters. And then the last sort of major component of the comprehensive plan are 2 maps. The first is the future land use map, and that is highlighted right over there, where Maxine is pointing to. This map provides land use designations for every site in the District of Columbia, including district-owned and federally owned sites. So essentially, there are a number of different types of categories that identify use and density. The purpose of this map is to provide guidance for what kind of land use should be there in the future. It may not necessarily reflect exactly what's there now, but this is supposed to be the long-term guidance. So one example is it may identify a site as low-density residential, or high-density mixed use, or moderate-density commercial. Next slide. The second map is a generalized policy map, and this map highlights different areas of the city, particularly major sites such as Walter Reed, St. Elizabeth's, McMillan, Poplar Point, and others, where major change or redevelopment is anticipated to occur over the lifetime of the comprehensive plan. It also highlights areas where more detailed policies are necessary. So this image, I don't know how well you can see it from the back, but this is a photograph of just plaza a couple of blocks from here along 14th Street. And it's really intended to show how all of the elements, the area elements and the citywide elements and the maps really work together to provide kind of a cohesive and integrated policy direction for areas of the district. So for example, in this image, there are some major apartment buildings in the back. There's a DC USA shopping complex. You've got this wonderful plaza here. And so this is all a reflection of policies from the 2 maps, from the mid-city area element, as well as citywide elements such as land use, urban design, and economic development. So why are we amending the comprehensive plan for the second time? So as I mentioned earlier, we did complete our last amendment cycle 5 years ago, and there are definitely some very significant reasons why we've launched another amendment cycle. I'm going to go into a few more details, but just to highlight, as we all know, the district has seen a lot of population growth, not only since the comp plan was written, but also since the last time we've amended it. And in fact, the comp plan anticipated growth over the future, but that the population growth, the rate of that growth has occurred even faster than what the comp plan originally anticipated. Additionally, there is more recent planning work by our agency and others that has taken place since the last comp plan. And we also want to use this as an opportunity to integrate emerging issues into the comp plan that we weren't focused on before. So you may have heard the number 800,000 thrown out in terms of the district's future. That is a forecast for the district's population. We are forecasted to reach that population level within about 15 years. We are currently, or as of last year, our population number was over 672,000. So again, we are forecasted to reach 800,000 within 15 years, and then going further out to 2045, almost a million residents by 2045. So just another quick set of questions. How many of you are native Washingtonians? Wonderful, wonderful, so am I. How many of you moved to DC after 2006? Great, great. And how many of you have new native Washingtonians in your family if you have children who are born here? That's wonderful, thank you. So just a little bit more data about the district's future. We also foresee continuing growth and development of new jobs over the next 20 years. And we also see some really interesting trends with our age forecast. This bar chart shows kind of at the bottom, the hot pink is data from 2006. And these are all, along the bottom, all different age groups from 0 to 4 all the way to 85 and over. The middle chart, the middle part of the bar chart is 2015 data. And then the top is our population forecast by age for 2025. And the key takeaways is that the district's population, our youth population, is growing. You may or may not know, but the district has been having a baby boom for the last several years. And so those kids are continuing to get older, and so we're going to see that in the future. Also, millennials are staying in the district. We're seeing that more and more in having children and forming families. And then also at the same time, our older population, age 65 and older, that whole age group is growing, particularly as the baby boomers are moving along in age. So as I noted earlier, as part of this amendment cycle, we want to integrate recent plans in, as well as emerging issues. These are just some examples of plans that were completed since our last amendment cycle. These are very significant plans such as Move DC, which is the district's long-term multimodal transportation plan, Sustainable DC, which you may have heard of, Age-Friendly DC, and others. None of those plans are reflected in the comprehensive plan, and those are sort of our major policy direction. Also, the Office of Planning, our agency has completed 6 small area plans. These are neighborhood level plans that are adopted by the council since our last amendment cycle, as well as some vision frameworks such as for Adams Morgan that we completed just this year. And then the last thing that I really wanted to highlight about this amendment cycle is that we are doing something that is completely new. We are integrating resilience for the first time into the district's comprehensive plan. And this is really significant for a number of reasons. The first is that most other cities haven't done this yet. We know New Orleans has done it. So we really see ourselves as kind of being out in the forefront of really looking at resilience as an emerging issue, figuring out what this means for the district and how we can help the city become more resilient. Just in terms of this particular graphic, just wanted to highlight the text in the squares really highlight sort of significant aspects of the district that make the city a great place. We are obviously the nation's capital. Again, we are also a growing city. It's also an historic city. We have a lot of historic assets in historic neighborhoods. Our 2 rivers are very significant for a whole variety of reasons. And also, the district really is the center of the region's economy in terms of jobs, as well as the infrastructure, whether it's transportation or even DC Water. The services that they provide benefit the district, but also customers within the region itself. But the key point is that these are all great things about the district. These are things that make us unique. But if something should happen or there's some major challenges that we're dealing with, all of these things can become very vulnerable. And so these are sort of a high-level way of how we look at resilience. Next slide. So we've done some initial thinking about this topic since we launched the process earlier this spring. And we've come up with a draft definition for resilience for the district. And so this definition is in your worksheet. We're very happy to hear your insights and feedback on this definition. I'm going to read it out in case you can't see it from the back. Resilience for the District of Columbia is the capacity of individuals, neighborhoods, institutions, businesses, and systems to thrive in an inclusive manner amidst challenging conditions and to prepare and plan for, absorb, recover from, and more successfully adapt to adverse events. So ultimately, what we want to accomplish with this work is to create a brand new citywide element dedicated to resilience, as well as create amendments to integrate policies and actions to make other citywide elements more reflective of resilience. For example, transportation, housing, infrastructure, as well as to add these types of policies in area elements for neighborhoods such as Bloomingdale that have been dealing with significant issues such as flooding. So how will the comp plan be amended? These are kind of two very significant points. The first is that we are not creating a brand new plan. We are amending our existing plan that has already been amended once. Ultimately, what we are going to produce is legislation with a package of amendments that we will submit to the DC Council. Secondly, anyone can submit an amendment. Unlike other planning processes, if you've been involved in those, this is not a case where OP is going to do all the work and then we put out our recommendations or ideas and we get feedback and then take it to the council. We are going to be launching an open call for amendments in early 2017. Our agency is going to be developing some of the amendments. Other district agencies will do so, but you will also have the opportunity as a member of the District of Columbia and our residents and other stakeholders to consider submitting an amendment if you wish to do so. But one thing I wanted to note is that for our process, you don't have to submit an amendment for your feedback or for your input to be valuable. If all you do is come here, talk to us, give us your comments, give us your ideas, and if that's what you want to do, we're perfectly happy with that. But we just wanted to let folks know that there is another way to give some direct input into the process. Next slide. So just to wrap up, just want to talk about the overall project timeline. We are still in the project kickoff phase, which again, we started back in the spring, and we've done some initial analysis and some thinking and had some early stakeholder conversations leading up to these meetings. We've also had 2 workshops just a few weeks ago with advisory neighborhood commissioners as well, and some of them are here, so glad to see you here again. And then really next year is really the year that the formal, more official amendment process is going to take place. Again, we're going to do the open call for proposed amendments, and once we receive those, OP will lead an interagency evaluation team. So essentially, we're going to use our expertise and our knowledge informed by an evaluation framework that we are also going to create and release at the time we start the open call. And the evaluation framework is going to be a publicly available document that will essentially lay out the evaluation criteria we will use to evaluate all proposed amendments. So that way, whether you're thinking about proposing an amendment, you'll know this is what it's how it's going to be evaluated, or if you just want to have a more transparent and better idea about how the evaluation process will take place, you will have that resource. And then once we go through the evaluation process, our agency will release a draft amendment report for public comment. This report will include all of the proposed amendments we received, who submitted them, what the justification was for them, and ultimately what our determination was in terms of whether or not that amendment should move forward. We're also going to have another set of public meetings at that time to get public input. And then finally, towards the end of next year, we're going to spend that time preparing a final amendment package with the goal to submit it to the DC Council by early 2018. And then following that process, it also has to go through federal approvals. And so we hope to have the final package of amendments fully completed and approved by mid-2018. So with that, we want to spend the rest of this meeting hearing from you. You've gotten the background. We've got boards with more information. We've got handouts with more information. But we really want to spend this time hearing from you. And so I'm going to turn it over to Steve to walk us through the open house.
Great. And thank you, Tanya, for that very informative presentation. So the process at the boards, I gave you kind of the quick preview of that. So essentially the way the room is set up is in this format here. So we actually, if you start in this corner of the room, this is the high-level parts of the comprehensive plan. You can review the vision and the core element. You can understand in a little more detail what the comprehensive plan is. And then as you begin to move around the room, we've got the two different area elements, Mid-City and Rock Creek East. As you continue to move around the room on this side, you've got the 12 citywide elements broken up across four stations, 3 elements apiece. And then over here in this corner, you have growth and development, kind of looking around the issues of the city continuing to grow over the next 20 years. There's an opportunity to come to these boards right here to my side, where you can focus on resilience and give us input and feedback about what you think that means for the city and what it should mean. If you have questions for Eric or other directors, you can come to this board right here. That's where Eric will be stationed. And so as you go around each board, you probably want to have your worksheet out. The first half of the worksheet has information on different parts of the plan. The second half of the handout has places for you to write down your ideas, write down your questions. Every station will have a comment board or a flip chart where you can post your ideas with the Post-it notes. If you don't want to do it that way, you can write down your questions or your comments on the worksheets and make sure you leave them. What happens when you leave your worksheet at the registration desk as you leave? You get a tote bag, right. All right, next slide. What we encourage you to do, all right, well, so hold on one second. All right, so I've explained the information that's available. So at each of these stations, we're going to have staff from Office of Planning there available to ask questions, to ask you questions, to encourage your input, and to just have a conversation with you about the different elements of the plan and what it may mean going forward. You probably have some questions that have been generated as a result of the presentation. Most of them you should be able to get answered high level at these boards, more specifically at the boards on area elements if you're concerned about the areas where you live, and at each of the different kinds of stations. So come ready to get your questions answered, and the staff will address as many of them as they can. We want to make sure that we capture your best ideas. We want to make sure that we capture your insights on each of the elements that you're most interested in. Next slide, Mary. So you're going to have 60 minutes to go around to as many boards as you care to. You can, if you want, you can camp out at one the whole time. But my guess is you each have a lot of different interests, and you should feel free to move around to as many stations where you are interested and where you want to provide input. So some people may race around and trying to get to all of the 30 boards, and some people may just want to do 2 or 3. So it's really up to you how you proceed. There are going to be additional handouts available at many of the stations that give more detail around the area elements and the citywide elements. We really want as much input as you can give us tonight. When we close the open house, one of the things that I'd like you to start thinking about as we're getting into the final, say, 15 minutes is after I've heard this great presentation, after I've gone around to all the boards and gotten many of my questions answered, what's my big thought about what this means for our city, what this should mean for our city going forward over the next 10 or 20 years? Want to hear your own reflections and insights before we ask Eric to come back and close out. Kind of what impressions and insights has this evening generated for you as you've learned about the comp plan and kind of what may need to be changed going forward? So be thinking about that so we have some of your voices live in the room at the very tail end of the meeting. So with that, I'm going to open the open house and encourage you to start wherever your heart moves you.
love to see if the Office of Planning can look into maybe something that could conserve our neighborhoods without going so far as historic designation. If there's some sort of level in between where we could, the neighborhood could really have some input about like the condo conversions, about the loss of single-family homes, just have more and more condos coming in. So, is there some sort of happy medium between the just developers can do quite a lot without getting a whole lot of neighborhood input, and sort of the historic designation, which to many folks in the neighborhood seems draconian?
Thank you. A historic preservation. Great. Thank you. Come on up.
I think the big overarching thought for me is that DC is a major international city. It draws in tremendous tourism revenue. There's a lot of wealth that comes into the city from external, from international, from across the nation. And yet it still has very much of many cases, a small town neighborhood feel. And I think the biggest challenge is maintaining that, because there's always going to be a change in sort of the international perception of the city, and the internal demographics are always going to be changing, but maintaining that international city with neighborhood feel, I think, is going to be the big challenge probably forever in DC.
How do you strike that balance? Yeah. Come on up.
I guess my question or comment is, I think the plan, it's nice you're having this meeting. This is fantastic. It's cool to be able to talk to all these people with different expertise and different areas of they work on. One thing I think is really kind of frustrating, I live on Georgia Avenue, and like there's all these places where they want to open a new restaurant, a new bar, or whatever. They plan to open in October, and then it takes 2 years because of the permitting process. It seems like the permits are crazy, and they take so long for stuff to get done, which means small businesses lose lots of money. This is a small business. They can't afford to, exactly, yeah. So I really think if there's some way to make the permitting process faster, easier, more effective, whatever it is, that'd be great.
Thank you for that feedback. Come on up.
I just think that a lot of people talk about housing in the district, and prices in west of the park, for example, are going way up for people, and the demand is higher over there because of schools. I think mostly because families want to move west of the park for the schools. I think if we focused on equalizing the education in the district so that there were more better schools throughout the district, that it might ease some of the housing stresses, and maybe just open up more options for people, because part of the reason that people want to move or even leave the city is when kids get to certain ages and the schools are not acceptable for them.
Raising the quality of education across the district. Great, thank you.
In thinking about the plan, one thing that struck me was a lot of it is talking about managing growth, and one thing that I think about is if we don't have growth, what are the negative effects of that? Because having growth is a choice, and not having growth is also a choice. And if we don't have, as many housing units as we build, for example, what are the consequences of that? Might they be negative consequences that affect our neighborhood, even if we don't see a lot of growth happening in our own neighborhood due to sprawl elsewhere or not having as good transportation choices, stuff like that.
So it's around managing growth and being able to be flexible enough around if you don't grow as fast as you think you're going to grow, how do you accommodate for that? Okay, great, thank you. I appreciate people coming up and sharing those thoughts, a real wide range of thoughts touching on a lot of the topics that we saw at the boards tonight. Thank you very much for taking the time to go through the open house and also to share your thoughts in this segment. And now I'm going to turn it over to Director Shaw to close us out.
Well, thank you very much for coming out. Some themes that we read I was walking around. Affordable housing. Yes, it's come up a lot. There was a lot of conversation that I've heard privately, but also people on the boards about really identifying conversations around race and understanding the sort of the ethnic and racial diversity of the city and how we can sort of celebrate that and address that in our policies. I think there were some ideas around sort of identity once again and how the area elements line up with neighborhoods, which we knew was going to come up as well. And I think once again that I'm really happy. I wanted to make sure we had the open mic for you guys to talk to one another. But you guys are giving me a challenge. You guys are laying down the gauntlet and making us think big, making sure that we're being responsive, and that I'm putting my money where my mouth is when it comes to inclusivity. So I think the next thing we're going to do on this is we're going to synthesize these ideas. And what I've learned now is we can't have a meeting and then a year later I tell you what we learned in the meeting. So we're going to be working very closely to make sure we do a report out on what we learned at this meeting fairly quickly. Once again, Colleen and Josh, raise your hands. On day-to-day planning issues, Josh is the Ward 1 planner. I know that's confusing, and Colleen is the Ward 5, which encompass these two area elements. So please make sure you talk to them. And then for any other ideas that come up, plandc.dc.gov, plandc@dc.gov, OPINDC, #PlanDC, #DC Cultural Plan. Oh, I have a lot of other plans happening right now. Oh, look at that. It's on the page. But we did go till 8:30. I'm going to be around till that time because I live in the Mid-City area myself. But thank you very much for coming out. This conversation is going to continue. And then if you think we need to do more, just let me know. Thank you very much.